We are going to start right away with Corinthia. So she is born and raised in Grand Rapids, and she has been connecting with individuals through art, and she is going to share her story of living in Grand Rapids. So we're excited to have you here, Corinthia.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Corinthia Ekroom. You are more than welcome to call me Cece. I want to share a story of an experience I had in downtown Grand Rapids the day the curfew was enforced. So I was helping a friend who was doing a silent protest. She was sitting in the middle of Rosa Parks Circle. So I was walking down Monroe Center. An older white gentleman was walking in my direction. Um, I didn't interact with him or engage. He was just walking on the street, and simultaneously there was a white female, middle-aged, who was also walking down Monroe Center just towards my direction. This older gentleman saw me and just said "effing nigger," with so much anger in his voice, with so much disdain for just my presence. And as I said, I did nothing, right? And although that was painful to experience, what was even more painful was the fact that this white lady was close enough to hear, looked in my direction and said nothing to the guy who was so enraged by my presence. And so I remember thinking in my head in that moment, like, wow, this just happened at home. And it wasn't a microaggression. Like this was in my face. And so my call to action, or I guess my request, is check our hearts. Like what are the feelings that we're associating with color, right? So even as a Black person, what feelings am I associating with the police department? What feelings am I associating with white people? What feelings am I associating with other Black people? What am I assuming by this presence being around, right? I want us to think about that, because there was no reason for me to assume that he was a threat besides what media has told me, right? He didn't do anything until him saying something. There was really nothing for him to assume that I was a threat, or for him to even be angry, because it was not as if I was vandalizing or participating in vandalism or even trying to incite anger on the inside of him. I was walking while being Black, and that made him angry. And for a couple days after that, I had to check whether or not I was angry when I saw someone who was Caucasian, when I saw someone who just seemed as if they might have been passive. Like I was associating a feeling because of something I had felt one time. I had, prior to this, I don't believe I've been called out of my name. And so I just want us all to, even though this is a very high tension time and this is a very uncomfortable time, I want us to think about what feelings are we associating with colors, and what are we believing about people without us knowing who they are. One major thing that I have been saying is, I think the problem is you don't see yourself in me. If I could see life in you, if I could see the value of what you bring to the table in you alone, as Wes, as Gracie, as Courtney, as Bob, Brittany, Celeste, Cindy, as anyone who is alive, if I see value in your life, then there's no argument of what someone did. They deserve to live, right? Nothing about who they are should anger me to the point where they should die. And so I want us to address that internally. Like, what am I feeling when I see a blue uniform or a sheriff's uniform? Or what am I feeling when I see a white person or another Black person or someone who does not look like me or who I don't think has the same viewpoint as me? Because, yeah, like that. I also wonder what the lady on the street walking towards me was thinking, and if she felt as if she couldn't say anything, right? Like all of that. How are we introspective? Because there's a lot of finger pointing going on of what you're doing, what you're not doing, but what am I doing that I can change? And I can change how, or address what feelings I'm associating with color. And so that's my call to action. What feelings are you associating with color? And that's any color. It's any color, whether it be skin, whether it be colors in the spectrum. Like, what feeling are you associating with color, and why? And address that. And I think that'll help. I think that'll help us going forward in all positions. Um, so that's where I'd like to leave that.
Thank you so much. That I feel like you started off extremely strong. We do want to ask you a question. If anybody has questions for Corinthia, please put them in the Q&A. I would love to hear a little bit about intersectionality and what it's like to not only be Black, but be a woman in America.
Absolutely. So for me, I feel like I'm Black first, right? You see me as Black woman, right? Like if you don't see me as a Black woman, I think you're denying something. And so I think there has always been that, just that self-identification of I am a Black queer woman, right? These are all identifications of intersectionality. So as a Black person first, I have to understand that sometimes what I do comes off as aggressive. As a woman, I know that as I have to be mindful that sometimes what I do comes off as emotional, and then as queer, where am I supposed to sit? Like, what am I supposed to do? So there is always this little bit of, I have to make sure that no matter whatever room I'm in, I am not too aggressive. I'm not too passionate. I am not too anything. I have to censor or filter in a way when I walk into rooms, because I am Black, queer, and woman. Like that, these are identities that I know, and just the same way as I was saying, what are we associating with that, those identities, that what are we associating with those colors? What am I associating with being Black? Black is not a threat. Woman does not mean overly emotional. And yeah, queer is not odd or weird.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And then one more question from the audience that we have here. If I was in the role of a white woman in the situation, would you suggest that I speak out to the white man who verbally assaulted you? Or would you prefer that I speak to you, that I don't agree with the situation and that I support you?
I feel like the action in this scenario would be to speak to the man, right? Because you telling me that you don't support doesn't help address the fact that he felt comfortable enough to feel supported in that scenario. And so, yeah, and I think also thinking from that standpoint, if I were to have said something that might have escalated the scenario, so in that situation, an ally would have been great, because he may have wanted me to respond. That may have been what he was looking for. And that could have been, I could have been on the news as an assault victim. You know what I mean? So if someone else could have spoken up and been an advocate, then maybe that could have helped. And then also help him address, like, maybe this isn't okay for me to do in Grand Rapids, especially in downtown. This is stuff you hear about in rural areas, right? Like, so yes, speak to the assailant, I guess.
Well, thank you so much for willing to be vulnerable and share a story that obviously carries a lot of hurt.
I'm going to say, find someone who you think is so different than you and talk to them. You're going to find out you have so much more in common than you think. Just talk to someone literally like, oh, they are white male. Like, I'm Black female, they're white male. I'm going to go talk to them. They literally, there's going to be so many things in common. Try it.